or at least should be, depending on where you're at in your entrepreneurial challenge or journey. And this is the panel on wellness. And we're not just talking about, physical fitness. We're also talking about mental wellness, all the things with our panelists. So I am so excited that we have Katy Chryst, Traci Warren, Samantha, and Fidel to help us along in this journey. Now, we did have some questions that were submitted. So we'll get to those questions, but we also, I'm just telling y'all right now, I'm selfish. So I have a few questions of my own that I want to make sure that we jump into. Now, this is going to be, I'm just warning you right now, a jam-packed session. It is only an hour. So we would highly encourage you, if any of our panelists say something that resonates with you today, please follow them on social media, find their websites, reach out to them outside of our business experience that we're having here today and tomorrow. And because these are like totally top-notch people, and we want you to be able to get as much out of them and more. So make sure that you reach out to them offline. So my first question is to Katy, and this is something that's near and dear to my heart, and it's all about habits, girl, because I know you are the habit woman. So one of the things that we often get from our clients is, how do we maintain healthy habits?
What a great first question, and also a jam-packed question too. I tell my clients all the time, it's like, to maintain habit, like you just have to take it one, like day by day, like just focus on your day, because sometimes, especially with our health, it can get way too overwhelming, where you have these huge ambitious health goals, which they should always be really ambitious. Like they should always excite you. But because they're so ambitious, we're like, how do I do that? Like just start with the day. And also, I'm going to sound like such a nerd, but just plan. You have to plan it. Like if you don't plan it, then the day is going to happen to you. I tell all of my clients, you have to reclaim your day and set your intention for your day for your health habits, and just giving it the time and the attention that it needs every single day. Like that's how you form the habit of just giving it attention. So I know it's a weird, I wish I could say like step 1, 2, and 3, but it's just focusing on the day and planning them and sticking to it, which I know for entrepreneurs, it's hard because our minds are all on work. And so a lot of the times it's so much easier to just stay focused on the computer or the work or the clients that you need to connect with. And we don't take a break. We don't step away. We are going through your day and you're like, wait, where is the water that I was supposed to drink today? So
Right.
It's just, it's planning it. It's making it as manageable as possible, which I don't know. I hope that answered your question. I know it's
Absolutely,
such a broad topic, and
no, you're totally speaking my language, because I am a planner, and I really live with that philosophy. If things aren't planned out or they aren't in your calendar, they're not going to happen. So if you say that you want to go and walk, 3 times a week, make sure that's in your calendar, right? So planning for those things and making sure that you have things in place to help you be successful when you are starting a new habit, right? Because we can say we want to do this, this, and this, but if you aren't putting all those measures into place to set yourself up for success, hiccups can happen. So talk to us a little bit about those hiccups, right? Like, how do we motivate ourselves to stay consistent, when it comes to your different levels of health?
Yeah, no, it's motivation it's a ficky thing. Because I know a lot of the women that I talk with, they say like their biggest struggle is just, I'm not motivated. Or you might be motivated at first, but not consistently. And so that's where kind of, and what my workshop and webinar was really about was just kind of these 2 steps processes of kind of sparking your motivation, which I feel like we all kind of have that. We all have it's January 1st, like sparked motivation, or I'll start on Monday. Like we have in our mind, Monday is a motivating day. And so the way that I kind of coach my clients through maintaining that motivation is, so to spark it, is that you need to, kind of like I was saying before, you have to have ambition. You have to have a really deep kind of, what do you want? And with our health, the biggest thing that I try to get people to go away from is focusing on your appearance as being the big reason why you're participating in these healthy habits. My background is I got my master's degree studying body image perception, and this goes for both men and both women as well. I know when the term body image comes up, sometimes a lot of like people don't think it's something with men, and it 100% is. They're just kind of very, very much understudied in this area. But the biggest, like if your focus and if your why behind your health, and if your motivation for your healthy habits is based on appearance, you're actually less likely to follow through and to create consistency. And the more that it's focused on health, the worse, you're actually more inclined to feel worse about your body image. And then that body image, that less kind of negative body image perception leads to less wellness habits, and actually an increase in really, really bad habits like self-criticism, self-doubt, low energy, lack of self-worth, like all these things. And we all know that starts to spiral. So the biggest thing with sparking your motivation is to create a why that's bigger than your appearance. And it can always start with your appearance. Like I mean, our culture is so ingrained to be like, that's it. That's the importance. You have to want to look thin and beautiful. And so don't ever doubt yourself if like that's your initial why, but just challenge yourself to go deeper and say, why is it so important for me to lose the weight? Why is it so important to me to feel sexy or feel this or that? And so grounding yourself in a really deep why that's bigger than your appearance, like that's the first step in the sparking the motivation. And then also, again, like I was saying before, in habit development, it's giving attention to why are you living a healthy lifestyle every single day? Because a lot of the time, like when our motivation falters, it's not because like our dreams died or our desire to be healthy died. It's just that we lost focus on what are we trying to accomplish here, and we let the day kind of take away our focus and let us drain ourselves. So that would be like the first two steps is really doing like, what is your why? That's not appearance, and then giving it attention. And then that's where you just kind of have action after that. So again, it goes right back to focusing just on the day.
I think that's really important that, we, as entrepreneurs, it's really hard to let the day get away from us, right? And we always have the plan, we time block it out, and then the time comes around to do the thing that we're supposed to do, and we don't do it. And what I learned for myself was that it was a boundaries issue, right? That I was not honoring my own boundaries. If I had set it aside in my calendar and I chose not to do it, that I was not honoring my own boundaries. Do you find, is that like true for you? Do you think that is could be a factor, or do you think it's something else?
100%. Yeah, you're not like, you set a promise to yourself that you're gonna do that, and you broke that promise to yourself. Mm-hmm. But it's a struggle, and that's where it's just like, if that's something that you struggle with, that's a habit. That's your habit, is to break boundaries with yourself, to break promises for yourself. Mm-hmm. And so it's just kind of like, don't be judgmental towards yourself if that is what's going on. Just notice, hey, why do I do that? Just notice, be curious with it, and then be like, okay, how do I change? How do I want to approach this better? What led me to not say yes to that kind of approach before, or that the time slot that I put on there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I think that's really profound, that you are breaking a promise to yourself. And when you when you think about it that way, you're like, oh man, that sucks. I can't believe I just did that. Because would you break the same promise to your children? Would you break that promise to a client? Would you break that promise to your spouse? But we break promises with ourselves all the time because we love to put ourselves last. Right? Put everybody else's needs before my own. So
Big time.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That was super. That was really, really good.
Of course.
Yeah. So I have a question for Traci. Traci, you know, you are all about leveling up in your business and in your life. That's really part of your platform. But talk to us about like what's the impact of leveling up in your wellness? Like what kind of impact can that have on your business and in other areas of your life?
It can make every bit of difference possible. And I unfortunately learned it the hard way, where I was in the health and fitness industry, and there's such pressure to look a certain way and to carry yourself a certain way, to have X amount of energy all the time overflowing, right? And so the temptation then is to fall into sort of closet lack of self-care, you know, because there's such shame associated with not being that way in that industry, right? Because you don't want to appear like a fraud. And so I ended up just wanting to excel in business so much, even though it was the health and fitness field, that I was working while the fitness might have stayed, but the self-care associated with the wellness decreased until I was at stage 4 adrenal fatigue. And then I'm sleeping all day and awake all night. And that is not good for business. And it is not good for trying to keep your weight in check. And it is not good for your relationships and your, emotional well-being. So it can have a huge impact on every area, for sure, business. And I see people not putting the emphasis on their health, and it's tempting for myself even, and I've learned the hard way. But I think that it's so important to know the way that you function. It kind of goes back to what somebody said in the mindset earlier, like you've got to know yourself well to be able to say, in regards to my wellness, this is what I struggle with. And do I need accountability? Yes, I do. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin, but I wish I had known that stuff when I was actually doing more health and fitness coaching, because it would have made a really big impact on the way that I work with clients. And even though I'm a questioner and I follow through on internal expectations, when it comes to my food, I somehow switch over to obliger. And if I don't get outside accountability, then, it's going downhill. So we've got to know ourselves in that regard and be able to make that interconnection between if I show up this way for myself in my wellness, my body, mind, and spirit, then it's going to mean this for my relationships. It's going to mean this for my business. It's going to mean this for the way that I'm feeling energetically, right? Because it's going to have an impact either way. So we have to decide which way do we want to feel in every area and then be able to move forward. I would much prefer to tell you like the happy story, but unfortunately I learned the hard way. So I'll tell you, from the negative standpoint, and then, I have obviously been able to course correct and do it the right way and feel amazing and move forward. And it produces the income that it can produce in business is magnificent, because people are drawn to that energy, and that comes from the wellness that we're talking about. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious about, when we think about wellness as a whole, how do you define wellness? Like, can we really dig in a little deeper to what wellness is, and why is it important for us as busy entrepreneurs to bring wellness into our routines and into our habits?
I don't know if that's for me or for everybody, but I'll go ahead and just do a quick response. But I would love to hear everybody else's take on that personally. So for myself, and I have not looked it up in the dictionary as far as like, what is the traditional definition of wellness? And I think there's a lot of value to doing that. But I see wellness as being something that is in alignment with myself, and anything that deters or makes me feel off is not my optimal wellness. And I went through a period after baby number 2, I think it was after baby number 2. I've got 4 kids. And after baby number 2, I finally, after 6 weeks of dealing with all kinds of crazy up here, called my doctor, and she said, if you feel off at all, then you need to get help. And that one little definition, to me, that really has become my definition of like the opposite of wellness. If I feel off at all, then I am not well.
Mm.
And that has been a really good guiding force for me to keep myself, body, mind, and spirit in check over the last 10 or so years.
Mm-hmm.
If anything's off,
Mm-hmm.
that's not optimal wellness.
Yeah, love that. Fidel, what are your feelings about that question?
Could you tell on my face that I had feelings and thoughts?
Yes.
Just to ground it down for a moment, can you repeat the question?
What is your definition of wellness, and why is it so important for us busy entrepreneurs to bring wellness into our lives?
Yeah, the definition that sparked me when you asked the question was, it's the essentials that you need to thrive. It's about your thrival. It's not about your survival. It's not about the things that you can just get through without and put to the side. But it's when we ask that question, what do I need to thrive, to feel my best, to be my best, to live my best, to show up in my business as the best version of yourself? Like that's wellness. And that goes into the self-care, that goes into the asking for support and the accountability. What is it that and turning those into non-negotiables, essentials for you to live, grow, build well?
Love that. Love that. How about you, Katy? What would you say?
Yeah, no. So for me, I'm a very high achieving person. So I'm an Enneagram 3, which I think someone was on this said, okay, yeah. For me, because I can just go all day, but then at the end of the day, I'm just washed out. Yeah. And I was like, something's off. Like Traci, what you were saying, like something is off. And so for me, just as simple as possible, because I feel like wellness is kind of a term that's kind of everywhere now these days. Mm-hmm. And so it gets confusing. And so for me, thinking of wellness, it's energy. Plain and simple is, do I have high energy or do I have low energy? And that's where like high energy, I like just doing anything possible that makes it so that throughout the entirety of the day, not just in the morning drinking coffee, the entirety of the day, do you have high energy? Mm-hmm. Are you showing up? Are you vibrant? Are you magnetic? Like all these things versus are you low energy? Mm-hmm. And even I could be like go throughout the whole work day, but at the end of the day, when I am with my family, with my loved ones, and if I am not highly energetic, if I'm burned out, that means that those activities were low energy activities. And so I feel like that's where it comes as like in business and in entrepreneurship, like just knowing the difference between your work day and are you showing up highly energetic for the entirety of the day. I feel like that is why it's so important. And I do, because again, this is me, my master's degree, but I wrote down a couple of stuff of like why energy is so important. And it's because the lower your energy, the lower your level of happiness, the lower your enthusiasm for taking on challenges, the lower your perception of your own success versus your peers' success, which that one's huge. The lower your confidence in the face of adversity, the lower the degree of influence you'll have with others, and the lower the likelihood you'll eat well or exercise. So just all those things, like if you don't have energy, like you're going to be less happy. You're going to compare yourself to others, which is when you're an entrepreneur and you're just kind of testing things out and you're like, so many other people are kind of doing the same thing, but not if you're comparing yourself to them and you see yourself as lower than them, like that's detrimental towards your work. So that's where, for me, wellness, just if I can just be really, really simple, it's energy.
Yeah, very interesting. Samantha, I'm really curious to hear, I know you have a completely different.
Yeah, I know. I was just about to say that. Go ahead.
Space. So I would love to hear what you think about wellness from the music space.
So I think wellness looks different for everyone. And one of the questions that I've received so many times is what music relaxes, what music do you use to relax people the most? Or what music do you use to create optimal wellness? And I think it's important for people to remember that there is no right music. Is for me to relax, I listen to Bon Jovi. But for someone else, that might just really irritate them. And so, like, I listen to country music too, and I know that country music is just not right for a lot of people. I listen to breakup songs that drive my husband nuts. Like when I feel really, really sad, I will listen to breakup songs and it will bring me back to, where I feel right. But it drives my husband nuts. He's like, do you want to break up with me? Are we getting a divorce? I'm like, no, but listening to sad music can actually, there's something in your brain that happens that it actually makes you feel better. And it can help you feel better when you're feeling low. And so I just think that's important for everyone to remember. And some people, like, music may not be their thing, and that's important to remember too, that a lot of people are like, oh, I listen to music to relax. Well, that might not be your thing, and that's okay. So just remembering that it looks different for everyone.
Oh my goodness, Samantha, thank you so much. As a music therapist, I'm so thankful that you said that on this particular call or on this presentation, because I think that so many people think it has to be classical or this or that or whatever. And I mean, you've had experiences with adults and children when it comes to music. And we all know that music can affect people in different ways. There was a song that was like a lullaby for many of my friends' children, and I played it for my son, and he about lost his mind. He hated that song. So I just think it's so interesting, that whole auditory response that people have, and recognizing that it can be different for people, right? And that music maybe isn't the best thing. But I do have a question for you. So as a music therapist, what are some of the things that we could do to reduce stress with music? Is it drumming? Is it, what are some of the things that we can do, like in the middle of the day? If I think Doris had mentioned earlier that she has her theme song. We're going to put together a Spotify list. I mean, what are some of the things that we can do when it comes to music to help us reduce our stress levels?
So you can participate in a drum circle. You can't do that in the middle of a day, but drumming has amazing effects on your stress level, on your immune system. It helps you create connection between people. And you don't have to have any music experience. You don't have to know how to play the drums. I mean, you can hit a drum. Anyone can hit a drum. Or you might play a percussion instrument. So that is a really great thing to do. You can also get progressive muscle relaxation scripts, and they have them on apps all the time, or you can go on YouTube and just listen to progressive muscle relaxation. And that's really good. I highly recommend getting a happy drum. That is the #1 instrument that calms people down. I love it. And I would show it to you, but it's in the car with my husband. But it's Happy Drum. It's just HAPI, and it's just very calming, soothing music, and you can play it. And when you play music, it uses a different part of your brain than when you just listen to music. And so there's different parts of your brain being activated. So if you just listen to a happy drum, that might calm you down. But if you're playing it, that activates another part of your brain that really might calm you down even more. Or you can just play any instrument. You can just play a piano. Anyone can get their 2 fingers and just plunk out stuff. That's really relaxing. So yeah, those are just some ideas.
How about the air guitar? Is that acceptable?
That is totally fine. Dancing is such a great way to relieve stress. And, you know, playing the air guitar, rock out, and that's a great way too. I totally forgot about dancing, and that's like my #1 thing. So
oh my goodness, there is one that I will say, because I do have a preteen in my home that when he used to play this, I would just get so irritated, and that was that doggone kazoo. Oh, that did not help out my stress level.
I thought you were going to say the recorder.
No, recorder was fine. It was the kazoo that really drove me over the edge.
kazoos and harmonicas, they get me. It doesn't relieve my stress.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. So speaking of stress, Mr. Fidel, what can we do when we feel stressed, when we feel overwhelmed, when our energy is low, we are feeling burned out? Do you have any recommendations for how we can kind of find our groove again?
Yes. So finding our groove again. There's some mindsets here that I do want to address. Oftentimes, people don't burn out because they're doing too much. It's because they're not doing enough of those things that light them up. You can take 2 people doing the exact same effort, doing the exact same task, and somebody's drained at the end of it. And what is it? It's the shift of, we talk about energy, or we were talking about energy earlier, is this place of what lights you up. And when you're doing those things that light you up, when you're operating from a place of your decisions, your thoughts, your words, your actions, you literally can find the sweet spot in your energy, and you can kind of operate from that. So I'm super passionate about empowering entrepreneurs to, what would it look like if burnout was never an option, right? If there were things that were always in place to safeguard yourself, where you can always just be able to refuel, to reset, to reignite, and all those different things. I want to mention that first, with, because what we're kind of talking about is on the back end, like after I'm now in this particular place, what do I do to kind of reignite and kind of get back into that place and have that motivation and to manage the stress? So I wanted to say that first. So when you're in that place, what's so important is that you pause and that you listen, and you maybe put yourself in a different environment to begin just to feel what you're feeling, but give yourself permission to rest. Rest is an action word. It doesn't mean that you're doing nothing. It's a slowing down to speed up. And that stress is really an invitation for clarity and for peace, and to begin to shift and get curious around your stress. And did you know that thinking stress is bad is what makes stress bad? But you can actually shift and say, oh, you know what? When I get stressed, hey, these are the indicators. These are the things that come up. And you can actually change your belief system around stress that comes up to actually make it work for you. So when you're feeling stressed and when you're feeling overwhelmed, know that the stress and the overwhelm really is a loving invitation to come back to yourself, to explore, to revisit, to replenish, and to get curious about what your body, your mind, your heart, your spirit, your soul is asking for you to do that. So pause, breathe, go do something that fills you up. Don't beat yourself up. Because of course, if you're pushing hard all day long, of course you're gonna feel something at the end of the day, or something when you're getting into that particular place. And so that's when you get to love on you a little bit more. So stress, the overwhelm, it might just be an invitation for some more self-love.
Yes. I always quote Fidel when I talk about overwhelm is an invitation to get back into alignment. Like that has all, when you said that first time that I got to interview you, way back in the day, that always just stuck with me. And I just think it is so important, just a really good reminder that it's an invitation, right? To that something is not working. And so what I would love is for the folks in the chat to tell us, what is your favorite way that you relieve stress? Like if you're feeling all the, and what do you do? What activity do you do? And let's create a list of activities that we can do when we are feeling stressed out or like, oh my gosh, sometimes it's just, you need to take a break. You just need to take a moment. I go play with the dog. Like, all right, Jax, let's go play catch. And that is my stress relief. And I think he knows that when I feel stressed, because he will come and try to get me to go play with him. Right. And so animals are just so funny like that. But I would love to learn, what are the ways that you relieve stress? Crying is a good one, Melissa. Sometimes you just need to have a good cry. Right. Oh man. So Traci, Paige, were you going to say something? Oh, okay. Okay. So Traci, I know that there's, in your masterclass, you had kind of talked about the anointed arena. And I think, being able to help us figure out where is the thing that we love? How do we find the thing that we love? How do we choose our anointed arena? And can you talk a little bit more about that and what it is for people that may be unfamiliar with that term?
Sure. So one of the things to kind of segue from what we were just talking about to the anointed arena is that your anointed arena will energize you. And so if you are continuously doing these things that drain you, you are not in your anointed arena. And what I mean by anointed arena is that place, sometimes it's even literally geographic. It might be with a certain group of people. It might be geographic. It may be in a certain industry. It may be with a certain company. It may be a certain type of work. It may be the way that you carry yourself. So there is that sweet spot that I call the anointed arena. And when you are working and doing a daily effort, putting your energy toward that thing, right? In that space, in that anointed arena, you just naturally have more favor. Success comes with ease at that point. And so if things are constantly hard, if you feel like, why am I working harder than everybody else around here? You're probably not operating within your anointed arena. So in order to find that, of course, you can ask yourself some general questions of, like, is what I'm doing energizing me? Do I feel like I'm aligned with, the purpose in my life, the calling in my life? Am I receiving what I expect for the time that I'm putting in? Am I constantly drained, or am I energized by this? Do I feel like I'm laying down at night? Like the way that I describe, as we were talking about being tired, there's two kinds of tired for me. There's the tired that is like the draining tired. And then there's the tired when you fall into bed at night, like, I do not play team sports, but I would imagine if I played basketball and I left it all out on the court and I was a sweaty mess, and I put it all out there, it feels so good to be tired at the end of the day or at the end of the game, or if I'm launching right now, we're in the middle of a launch, I can be tired at the end of that launch and it feels really good and really sweet because I've put all of me in and played full out. So that can be, to go back to anointed arena, just because you may be tired doesn't necessarily mean that you're not in your anointed arena. I just wanted to kind of clarify those two tireds.
Yeah, I love that kind of perspective. And I recently had my own kind of moment where, is it hard? am I making it hard? Like, why is this not working the way that I wanted it to? And I discovered that I was no longer in alignment, and I had to give myself permission to change my mind. Right. And being able to do that was so important, because it allowed me to just release the thing that I thought I was supposed to be doing, but it was no longer really bringing me joy. And so I was like, you know what? And I think I was talking with Paige about this, was I think when I retired from photography, that was like, I'd gone to Fidel's retreat looking for permission to quit. Right? I was like, I needed someone to tell me that it was okay to stop doing the thing that I love to do, but I wasn't really in love with it anymore. And it took me a couple of months. And then I finally was like, you know what? The feeling came over me and I was done. But I think doing that prepared me for this next part of my journey, where I now can recognize that that is no longer bringing me joy, and it's okay to change my mind. So it like that whole experience really helped me like moving forward in this new kind of journey. So I love that you were talking about that. Like, it's the thing that brings you joy is how you know you're like in your in the arena where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. And the thing that goes right along with that kind of ties back to that part of wellness that we were talking about earlier, where if something's slightly off, you know, like you start to know then, like, you know what that trigger is for you, you know, because you've experienced that trigger, you've gone through that trigger, and you've given yourself permission to course correct. And unfortunately, me, as you can see, there's going to be multiple times where I'm like, yeah, I learned that the hard way. I did. Like, I pretty much always learn things the hard way. So, you know, you can create success outside of wellness. You can create success outside of your anointed arena, but it comes at such a cost that the fulfillment decreases, your wellness decreases. Is it really worth it? I'll tell you, no, it's not.
Right.
Sometimes we have to find out the hard way for ourselves. I recognize that, but yeah, just listen to us, trust us, like, not worth it.
Okay, so this conversation is really bringing me into, because I'm a huge Marie Kondo fan, and sparking joy, and, you know, she declutters and all that kind of stuff. And you can physically see that. You can physically see clutter, right? So what can entrepreneurs do to know if they're unwell, right? And how do they know that? How can they seek help for that? Like with clutter, you can see it. But when we're talking about physical or even mental wellness, we don't always necessarily recognize that. Can each of you maybe give us some pointers on, I know we have the whole premise of something feels off, but what else can people do to kind of like beef up that self-awareness when they do need help?
I can kind of jump in and maybe start this conversation a little bit. But this is really an invitation to get better connected with our own bodies, because our body doesn't differentiate the difference between different types of stressors and what's going on into our life. And oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we're on the go all day long. So we sometimes miss the signals that our body is communicating to us. So yes, we may not see the clutter, but we can actually feel it. Every thought that we have, our body's having a direct response to every thought, every action, everything that we're doing. So the practice of really beginning to take that pause, to receive that breath, and to notice where we feel the stress in our body, or the energy, or the excitement, or the overwhelm, because it actually lives in a place in our body. And so that's an awareness. There's a part in my body, my back, that will let me know when I'm operating out of doing mode versus being mode. When I'm in doing mode, I'm in my head, and it's like, here you go. And if I don't listen, if I'm just staying, focused, here it is, I'm pushing versus just like receiving, there's this part that starts to creep up, and it's the same spot every single time. And if I ignore it, I know what's going to happen, and then I'm going to be out. And so there's a true cost to not listening.
Oh, you mean when I don't have shoulder, when I don't have a neck? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh my gosh. Like, so I think you can see it, right? I mean, you don't need somebody else to tell you the thing that you think is off. You know, I don't know what's off. Yes, you do know what's off. You know, and it's that shift of your mindset and asking a better question of, man, what does my body want to say right now? Getting curious with what's going on and asking those right questions, and you will know and identify with what your next step is and what you need to do when you take that moment to pause and you listen and you check in. So I think you can see it because you can feel it. It's there if you pause and receive that breath. But you need that pattern interrupt. If you don't pause, it's impossible to think clearly and even have that know what to do when you're feeling overwhelmed. You're having your own adult business entrepreneur temper tantrum in your own mind and you can't see it. And everything, you'll only see it when you're actually in that pause where you create a pattern interrupt. You go for that walk, even if you're in the city, like somebody said that earlier. You know, it's giving yourself that fresh perspective.
Got to do something different, right? In order to get a different result, right? You just have to be able to just say, you know what, this is not working out. I'm going to go for a walk, and that pattern interrupt, the answers will come to you. Like, it's just that intuition, right? I love that. Thank you, Fidel, for sharing your wisdom. There is so much juicy stuff going on in the chat. Everybody's like, oh my God, you guys, all of you together is creating this wonderful thing of wisdom from all of these really different perspectives. And I think I'm like, man, we did so good choosing these panelists. Like, they're all like connected, but different and different perspectives. So Paige, we're gonna.
You have time for me to share one thing that I think will tie right into what Fidel was saying? So, because I completely agree, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, Fidel. And one of the things that I'm thinking for myself, I'm trying to process for myself right in the second, you know, like, how is it that I know something's off? And I think for myself, it's me knowing what my coping mechanisms are. And so when I see and I recognize that I'm leaning toward going to one of my coping mechanisms, then I know. It's just that it allows me then to take the pause and get grounded, take a deep breath and go toward that, you know? So sometimes it takes time for you to learn what your coping mechanisms are and what we fall back on, you know, but then once you know what they are, then you're going to just start with that level of awareness. You may not change anything immediately. You may just literally be aware of the coping mechanism and then continue the behavior. But that's just the first step, you know, then you can start to change the behavior once you are aware.
Coping mechanisms, you're speaking my language.
I know. I was just like, woo, Traci.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really interesting point. The coping mechanisms. I actually did a survey a couple of years ago about trauma and how it impacts entrepreneurs, and then the coping mechanisms that follow. And food was #1 coping mechanism in the survey. #2 was alcohol. So that kind of gives you some, I mean, and this was like 220 people that took this survey. And I discovered that people will tell you their deepest, darkest secrets in an anonymous survey. But it was like, wow, right? Just wow. So I'm curious if the folks in the chat, if they are aware of their coping mechanisms when they are feeling stressed or overwhelmed. Like, are you going to the pantry to find the secret M&M stash? Like, what is the thing that that you might use as a coping mechanism for stress or overwhelm? Katy, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, I think this is a really good, again, this all connects the coping mechanisms, the cravings, what is our clutter? Because because what my response was going to be, like, I had to think about this. This was a hard one, and it was a great question, but it's when you do have those cravings for sugar, for bread, for like Netflix, or when you have the craving to, again, my background is in body image. If you have the craving to look a certain way, that's your clutter right there. And a good paradigm shift too is just thinking that, like, our bodies, will only do things that's going to like benefit us, give us like a positive intention. So when you hear those things, when you feel those things, when you feel those coping mechanisms kind of come into play, when you feel those cravings, when you feel bad about your body, that's just the sign that something needs to change, whether or not that's your habit or your mindset. And I hope that anybody that's listening to this right now, like when you look at health and wellness, it's so much deeper than just what are you eating and are you exercising? And I hope you understand, like it is so, there's a reason why we came right after mindset. Like there's so much more personal development work that has to go in for you guys to see the results that you want to see. So that was just kind of my 2 cents. I really enjoyed what you guys had to say, Fidel and Traci.
Mm-hmm. Samantha, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I was just thinking of when I get stressed or I need to be better in alignment, I just get so angry. And that is the one thing. And then I just like shut down and I watch TikTok. So you got me hooked on TikTok, Elaine. So
I know it's my happy place. I love the dog videos.
Yeah. But yeah, I just was thinking about mental health, and you can feel the physical symptoms when your mental health is out of alignment. And I'm really big into mental health maintenance, I guess, like wellness with it. And I was just thinking, if you need help, like other people have said, that you need to ask. And maybe what you need is counseling, or maybe what you need is music therapy, or, you know, something like that, just to get some other coping skills. If you don't know your coping skills, then I've realized that talking to someone they don't tell me what they are, but they help me realize what they could be. So that was just what I was thinking.
Oh, I love that. I love that, what they could be. So with that, we are running out of time. I would love for each of our panelists to just run through and say where we can find you, or, you know, all the things. We want to make sure that we keep tabs on you and that we shout you out. So just let us know where we can find you.
Katy, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Facebook and Instagram. That's kind of where I'm my most present, is just at Katy Chryst. And the one takeaway too is I wanted to input this. When you guys were all putting in the chat what your stress relievers were, plan that every single day. Maybe not the crying part, but just if you know that that's relieves your stress, why won't you just put that in your schedule and just plan it? Because you're kind of just, you're upfronting it. But yeah, no. Follow me. I give so much just random tidbits and my thoughts on health and wellness. So at Katy Chryst.
Awesome. Mr. Fidel.
Yes, amazing people. You can find me at Fidel Forde on almost all the platforms, but I'm easy to get in touch with. Fidel Forde. That's my website. You can check out my stories that I put out there, get some daily spark in there to make that happen. I even have a community text line if you ever want to reach out and do that. I'll probably share that tomorrow. But yeah, I guess if I could give my parting thoughts here around stress and what I'm hearing, the importance of radical expression, being able to express whatever it is that you feel. From the comments that we're seeing here, sometimes it's tears, sometimes it's laughter or dance or music, but to be able to feel what you're feeling and finding some healthy way to express that. So going with what we've been talking about already, those coping mechanisms, saying, great, identify, make those lists of what are the unhealthy ways that I respond to stress? How does stress show up in all these different areas of my life, my relationships, my finances, my business, my health, my thinking, and identify those areas, and then come up with that amazing list that like Kathy was talking about there about like, okay, just replacing some of those different habits and starting to put it in practice, creating this new habits of now I do this and find these healthy expressions of how I feel when I'm starting to experience stress.
Lovely, lovely, lovely as always. Miss Samantha.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Boise Music Therapy. I'm also on Facebook. It's not as active though. And BoiseMusicTherapyCompany.com. Those are all the places you can find me. And I just wanted to say, don't be afraid of trying new things for coping mechanisms. So I really am afraid of art, but that's something that I like to do when I actually do it. And so just don't be afraid of trying new things. Like maybe go to a drum circle or start listening to music you might not listen to see if it helps you, or just don't be afraid of trying new things, because I know that's been a barrier to me finding new coping skills. So
good advice. Love that. Miss Traci.
Thank you, Paige and Elaine, for this opportunity. And so to find me, it's probably easiest on Facebook because I'm on there all the time. So Traci Warren on Facebook. On Instagram, it's Traci Warren Coach, Traci with an I, no E. And in my Materialize Impact Facebook group, I'm there all day, every day, feels like, and love the energy in that group. Final parting little tip would actually be from my EFT practitioner, which I am not a master of, but find a lot of value in. And that would be like, if you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or tired, just tapping anywhere, even though, or here, even though I'm tired, even though I'm stressed, even though I'm a hot mess, even though I'm frustrated, I deeply and completely love and accept myself and allow that to start processing through with the body. So no guilt, no shame.
Yes.
It's all well.
Yes. Tapping is
Thank
very, very powerful. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you to all of our panelists. This has been, I mean, just so far, the day has been awesome. We so appreciate you for taking your time and sharing your wisdom with all of our other panelists and attendees today in the Level Up to Scale Up Summit. Our next panel that we are going to be talking about is all about the money, and financial growth. So if you could just give us a few minutes to get those panelists up, we will be starting promptly at the top of the hour. And I know I speak for Elaine and myself. We are so appreciative of all of the insight and wisdom that you have shared so far. So get ready for our next session. We're going to be diving right in.
Yes, talking about time and money mindsets and financial freedom and even some legal stuff, how to protect your money. So stay tuned. I'm going to do some magic and we'll be like, literally, I just got to promote the people to the panel. So thank you guys so much for all of your contributions to this panel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I'm going to stop recording for a moment.